Welcome to the inaugural episode of Pod of the Dead. I am your host, Nicholas, and with me are two lovely ladies. Introduce yourselves. Let's go with the one that's here first, and then the other one.
I'm Stephanie, and I'm going to be going by the harsh critic because I am like that for most things. So, and I am Nick's wife.
I'm Tasha, and I'm the little sister. We'll come up with a better name later on.
And I just basically kind of go as elitist scum because I like foofy horror films, but then at the same time, I really like just trash, just the most gutter garbage ever. So, on our first episode here on Pod of the Dead, we are going to cover the movie Oculus. Stay tuned to the end of the episode because this is a movie club podcast. So we will be telling you what we are watching for next week's episode. So if you would like to watch along with us to be caught up and so you don't get it spoiled before if you want to keep up. Otherwise, we are going to dive into Oculus. So, what is your guys' history with Oculus?
I had never seen this movie or heard of it until it got brought up to us to watch this. So I was excited. I knew nothing about this movie until we literally watched it last night. So went into it blind, had high hopes for it, I guess, because I know it's a higher rated horror movie, but I didn't know anything about it.
I was the one that suggested it. It's one of my favorites.
Okay. I'm familiar with it. It just came out during a time that I was too cool for school with certain horror films and stuff like that. So if it was a big budget release, I was putting my nose up to it. So realistically, it's not like a massive budgeted release, but it was coming out like The Conjuring and stuff was coming out, and don't even get me started on those movies. But so I just completely turned a blind eye to it.
Actually,
so this was my first viewing.
Heard that had Mike Flanagan agreed to put it in that found footage era, it would have been made like 6-7 years earlier, but he decided not to. So props to him for that.
Yeah, to not chasing the trend or whatever. All right. Talking about like how much it cost and everything. This movie was estimated to be $5 million to be made. In what year was it? 2013, I believe, is when it was released. So 2011, 2012 is when it would have been made. It is directed and written by Mike Flanagan, Mr. Netflix horror nowadays. So this movie's 10 years old, and now he's doing the new Fall, the House of Usher, I believe. He did Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. So he's all over the place with that stuff. Let's see here. Yeah, it stars... Oh, excuse me. It stars Karen Gillan from Doctor Who fame. This was her first American film. Everything prior to this, was Doctor Who. And she's done some other stuff, but that was what most people knew her from. And because of Doctor Who, Mike Flanagan saw her in that and was kind of like, I want her for this character in the movie. It's also stars Brenton Thwaites, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Yep.
Katie, that's the brother. Is that correct? Katie Sackhoff, who is the mother in the film, who for this performance won the Fangoria Chainsaw Award for Best Supporting Actress. I think it was like 2014 or something like that. Rory Cochran, I'm not sure who that is in the movie. And then, oh wait, no, that's the father. Anyway, and yeah, so it was produced by Trevor Macy and Mark D. Evans. And Tasha, would you like to give us any information about the
film? So if you know of Mike Flanagan, it kind of falls into a lot of what he does. So there's a lot of hallmarks. If you've seen, like Nick mentioned, The Haunting of Hill House, I think there are a lot of parallels between that. It kind of falls in that like haunted house, haunted thing type movie. I personally really like it because I like movies that make you question reality and question the subjectivity of movies. How much detail do you want me to give? Because I could go on.
You can, without spoiling any details of the actual film, you can give as much as you'd like.
Without spoiling.
Because we'll do that after the commercial break. We gotta let people pump the brakes if they're like, whoa, I was actually gonna watch this, and then you're like, and then the boat sank. It's like, what? There was clearly room on that door.
It's one of life's great dilemmas. Or
Justice for Jack 2023.
Just to kind of wrap it up in a nice little bow without telling too much. There's a quote that I found that says that Flanagan turns the fragile nature of consciousness into a better fear tactic than any visceral shock could possibly achieve. And I think that's the movie in a nutshell without giving away anything. So if you're into that kind of flow where it's not gory, it's not, over the top horror, but you still get this just vibe about it, then this is a good movie to check out.
Yeah, it's not super gory. Like there's blood in it. There's definitely some scenes in it that for me, like I told Steph, like right after we watched it last night, it bothers me in a way because the only thing, except for the end, that doesn't. But everything else in the movie, when we get to spoiler territory and stuff, I'll explain a little more, are things that I don't like. I can deal with someone getting sawn in half and blown up and gutted and stuff like that. But there's very specific things that certain kind of traumas that I don't, because it's too visceral for me. So yeah. But all that being said, Steph, do you have anything to say about Oculus before we give the spoiler warning?
I think it's just talking about that it's more of a mental health based movie and it's psychological. So like you're not getting into your normal scares that you're getting from like a standard horror film. So I think that's like the main focus of it is you're definitely getting that aspect than you are in, say, other movies. It's definitely not gory, has moments, but it touches on different subjects and in a specific genre of horror film.
All right. So without further ado, we will be throwing up the spoiler warning sign. And after this, we are going to be opening up and talking about the film with no abandon. We're just going to go through it, talk about everything that we want to. If you don't want to be spoiled, stop this episode right now. Go watch Oculus. Come back and join us and see what you think, if we're right or we're wrong. That being said, I'm going to read a couple online reviews of Oculus that I found on IMDb. One of them's a 1 out of 10 review, and one is a 10 out of 10 review. That being said, let's see if you can guess which one is which. All right, here we go. Lead female moron, knowing full well the evil power of the mirror, sets up laughably inept plan to prove the mirror is evil and vindicate her parents. Oh, the mirror can make us hallucinate and think, do anything at once. Why? I'll just videotape what happens as proof. And for good measure, I'll force my lunatic asylum alumnus brother to help me. Only an imbecile would conceive of the failsafe kill switch in this stinker. As fate and Darwin would have it, the imbecile suffered the consequences. If your IQ is under 90, this movie is for you. Is that a 1 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 for this film?
That's a one.
That's a
How dare they
one.
speak so poorly of Karen Gillan? Ouch.
All right. And then maybe this is a 1 out of 10 as well. We'll find out. One of the best scary movies I have seen in years. It reminds me of The Others, another one of my favorite movies. I would definitely recommend this to all of my scary movie lover friends and family. I love the whole illusion effect of it all. It was very creative. I thank Mike Flanagan for blessing us all with this here art. I rate it 10 out of 10. Damn it, that kind of gives it away, doesn't it? Before I took the time to watch this movie, I heard so many bad reviews. After watching it, I have no idea what was not to like about this movie. In my opinion, it was near perfect. This movie had all the things I want out of my scary movies. I want to be mentally challenged, as in tricked and scared. So I guess they don't want to be mentally challenged. I also want to see death and gore, but not a lot. Whomever is reading this, I recommend you watch this right away. So clearly when they said 10 out of 10, they meant 1 out of 10. No? Okay. All right. So with that out of the way, we can really start talking about the movie. We can start walking through it a little bit here. So the opening of the film, Tasha, would you like to kind of lead the way since this is your jam?
I have to, like, the best entrance is just Karen Gillan's ponytail. Can we talk about that for a second? I love that part. But yeah, that's how it starts. So the main format is kind of an old school horror trope of, something bad happened and brothers in a psych ward right now. It starts off with, dad was murdered by son because dad murdered mom. So, and that's kind of something that is kind of a common, storyline, or like, that concept of like familial trauma, but that's how it starts. With that, sorry, I'm gonna cut for a second. How much do you want me to go in depth? Am I leading it at this point?
You can.
Okay.
Yeah, you can lead it.
I didn't.
And then like pause like every so often, and then we can kind of step in and talk about the areas that you're talking about.
I was doing so well.
You're good. So you're talking about the family trauma and stuff like that. You have yet to talk about that was 11 years ago.
So this happened when they were kids. It was 11 years ago, and Karen Gillan's character, Kaylee, is the older sister. So younger brother went away to a state facilitated psychiatric facility. He got extensive therapy throughout. And then he's reunited with his sister 11 years later, who just has this vendetta of the murder that happened. It comes to pass that she's set on this murder happened because of a mirror that was found. So this is pretty common. This story type is pretty common in like Amityville Horror, or, it's a haunted doll or a haunted house. But I think it's really cool that they went to this mirror, and she works with an auction house. So she's taken this past time, so many years, trying to find this mirror to kind of to end it, to kill the mirror.
Now, do you think that she went down this pathway of this job growing up, knowing that it was going to be something that she would be hunting out or something? Like, do you think that's what it was?
As like hell bent on this as she is, that you come to see after she finds the mirror. I mean, she's been tracking it. I think it was for like easily a year, maybe 2. I can't quite remember. But for as sure as she is when it comes to the checks and balances she puts in place once they have the mirror, she's like made this, it seems like, her top priority to kill this beast that ruined her life. Mm-hmm. I mean, that part all makes sense. Like she's hell bent on ending this and kind of, it's like it's a vengeance film in a sense, but it's not up against another person. Yeah,
it's
not
a
up against
revenge
a person.
film.
It's up against an inanimate object, which I think is really cool.
Right on. Yeah, so one little Easter egg in that. So when they're showing the mirror at the auction house being sold, they said it was taken from, found, I can't remember the exact word they use, like salvaged from the Lavask estate. And if you notice at the very beginning of this film, it is a WWE film production. So the Lavask family is none other than Mr. Triple H Hunter H. Helmsley's actual last name. His last name is Lavask. So that's like the only thing in the film that is like a little Easter egg nod to the fact. And WWE actually didn't have anything, any involvement with it during the shooting of this movie. It was after it was shown at some festivals, they decided to help back it with, so they backed it with some money for marketing and stuff like that. And they must have then at that time just kind of maybe reshot something or did some like after audio of that to just tie it in there. But I thought that was kind of cool.
Another little Easter egg about the mirror is it shows up in a lot of other things that he's made too. It was in, it's on the walls in the house of Hill House, in the Haunting of Hill House. I think it's downstairs. It's also in the basement of Ouija, Origin of Evil that he made. And then it's on the headboards of Gerald's Game. I haven't heard of that one, but it pops up in a lot of other things that he does.
Yeah, Gerald's Game is based on a Stephen King story. So he's got a couple Stephen King stories under his belt that he's done. I believe it's based on a short story by him. So Gerald's Game is one. And then the other one that he did is Dr. Sleep, which is a sequel to The Shining. But continue if you'd like.
So to backpedal a little bit, this mirror is it was her dad had purchased it at an auction, and through digging, so there's kind of a theme of it's getting sold at auction over and over again at these estate sales, at these auction houses, antique stores and such. So no one really knows where it came from originally. No one knows its true origins. It's never mentioned in the movie where it actually started, but Kaylee, Karen Gillan's character, does a lot of research, and that's kind of a very fast-paced start of kind of how they get into the mirrors, what origins they have. She mentions over like 40 different people have experienced death when this mirror is involved, and she goes through kind of in graphic detail with pictures how it happened, to whom it happened, and to the extent. So, and then her dad was just the last one on record, I think, that it happened to, because then it got sold at auction, and I'm not sure what happened at that point. Does it ever say?
Yep. Yeah, they kind of give you this. Yeah, they give like kind of this expositional dump that you really liked, right, Steph?
Yeah, that's my favorite part of the whole movie. I thought that was like very informative, and she has pictures to show you what these people are, who these people are, and like all their backstories and how they all have similar but not the same ways of dying. So it's not like the same reiteration. It's like a variable. So I liked that about it. But yeah, she's just standing in a room, literally talking to a camera, spilling her guts about like the histories. And I felt that was like very, I don't know, fun to listen to.
It's at this time, too, that you start to see the dynamic between the brother and the sister, where she is hell bent on this mirror did it. There's no denying it. You remember. And then the brother being like, after 11 years of therapy and stuff, his sister saying that he's been brainwashed and stuff. But you're seeing this this rift being built throughout the film that really makes you question who's crazy or who's repressing, or it just up until a certain point. Well, spoiler warning's already been there. Up until you see like some plants die and stuff, you literally are just going like, I don't know, maybe she is fucking nuts. Like maybe like that would definitely be a red herring kind of like left turn swerve kind of thing that you're like, okay, the brother's crazy. Oh wait, no, the sister's really crazy. Because that was a problem that I did have with the film, was like it does a really good job of explaining a lot of stuff. But so why was the brother taken into custody for killing his dad when the sister is right there, able to give a statement and all this stuff? And that's like my huge gripe with this film, is if you take that away, I like the movie more than I expected to like it. And it really makes you think about stuff, but that like is my biggest gripe with the film.
And that's something that never even crossed my mind. I was so in it by that point, like that didn't even register. The fact of, Kaylee was right there to say something, and she said something, and he still got
like away. And I understand the fact that, like, you know, the mirror is able to affect things and all this, but there had to have been a court trial. There had to, there had to have been some stuff going on. People had to have been taken downtown, not in the Mike Flanagan universe. This kid's fucking going to the mental ward now. I have a script that needs to be made.
Well, and the other weird thing about it was like, okay, so she doesn't get mental help, but he gets to go through extensive therapy. And then she's just kind of like left on her own. Like, hey, you're 2 years or 3 years older than him. We're just going to throw you to the wolves and not give you any mental help and just, let you compartmentalize however you want to. So then she's on her like revenge vendetta. And then he's like this now he's the one that's compartmentalizing things and is like, that didn't really happen. That was fake. And my brain's just coming up with things, to deal with and cope with things. And then you come back to the situation in the house and you're like, okay, well, he did work through his stuff and tell himself that it wasn't real, but it was.
I can see where I agree with what you're saying, where there is some parts, especially in the beginning, where the storyline and the writing isn't the greatest. Where, like in that case, where that dynamic of, now emotionally regulated and on top of it, and went into the foster system and was left to fend for yourself. Yeah, that part was a little, I'll give you that. And also the quote that just sticks into my head is when she first sees the mirror and she's like, oh, you must be hungry. That part, like, we could have done without that too.
Yeah. Well, like there's like some of those like little like quippy things that like, like where you see the crack in the mirror. She's like, I hope it hurt and stuff. So it definitely like, and another thing, I know Steph has some things to say about this, but the foreshadowing in this movie is very on the nose. It's going to be very interesting to see like what everybody's final scores on this are. But about at this point in the movie is probably like, so since we're talking about where she's talking to the mirror in the back and stuff, this is where you actually see the first time its effects because of what I've got written down here. 2 ghost, 3 ghost. The reflection of the busts behind her in a third form and stuff. So like you start seeing that and then they load it up and it sets up a lot of like this. There's going to be a jump scare. There's going to be a jump scare. And I think it did a really good job with that because it's like painfully quiet. A lot of the times which I commend this film for, because I hate when there's a score underneath it that's like, it's getting louder. So like it ruins the scare if it's supposed to be. And I didn't notice that so much in this movie. There were jump scares in it and stuff, but they weren't so messaged before it happened, like, get ready, it's going to be spooky.
It's the type of movie where you're always looking in the background, just like those busts. Like it's just so subtle. If you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. And then once you see that, at least for me, I was always like seeing what's happening in the foreground, but always paying attention to what was happening because I didn't want to miss something walk by or whatever it was.
Correct. And it definitely makes you question if like what you're watching is what is actually happening at times, because Steph and I talked about after the film off mic and everything that So there's times where you see Kaylee's character setting up cameras and stuff like that, but at the same time, you're seeing her face on computer screens staring into cameras. So you're left to believe, okay, which one of these two, because you're watching it kind of from the brother's perspective a little bit, which one of these is actually happening? And it really plays with that a lot because the movie takes two timelines, and instead of using flashbacks all the time and stuff like that, it runs the two narratives side by side, like on top of each other, which it gives it kind of like a weird cramped space, since the movie does take place for the most part, most of the runtime in one house the whole time. Even at times when they think they're out of the house, they're in the house and stuff like that. But yeah, they do a good job of making you question like who's actually remembering correctly. And then, like I said, like, dead plants and the camera's moved, and go ahead and take it from there.
So
if
like
you
you
wouldn't
mentioned,
mind.
the dead plants, there's always the same, while like Steph said, the death might be different each time. There's always a progression with the mirror's effects and the mirror's radius of influence, I think is what she calls it, which I think is really cool. So it starts with dead plants, and then it goes to a pet getting affected, and then it goes to like starting to affect your psyche, and then that's either how they end up like meeting their demise, or it just keeps progressing through that. Like the person might stop eating, might start like inflicting pain on themselves. So it's like the mirror takes victims like most vulnerable to least vulnerable. So like a plant wilting, and then the dog dying. And that was the one part that I really hated about what she was redoing. So their dog as a child ended up dying. And then she was like baiting this cute little dog that eventually ran away. I do like that it ran away because then you don't really know what actually happened to it.
I legit have a line in my notes that says dog bait. No.
That part was probably one of the most heart-wrenching parts of the whole movie.
Yeah. And it's like the most cutthroat version of it too. The dog, it's a French bull, or no, it's a Boston Terrier. It's a cute little Boston Terrier walks in, and it's like, oh, I didn't know you had a dog. Like, because she's like, all right, dog, let's go. Yeah, it's like, did you name your dog Dog? It's like, no, I never named my dog, or I never named the dog. And she then puts it in a cage and puts it right up against the fucking mirror and just covers it with a sheet and just like,
and waits.
This will prove it. And part of me wanted to like the plant reveal that you get. I thought we were going to get from the dog. I thought they were going to take the sheet off and the dog was going to be gone. So when you saw the dog, I was able to breathe easily, and our son Wesley was watching it with us, and he was like, oh, thank God. He was just like balled up, like, oh no, the dog, because you can hear it whimpering and stuff like that. And
not another John Wick situation in this movie, thank God. But yeah, it was the thing I thought was very strange about that is like she's bringing a dog in here to feed it, right? One, she picks the tiniest dog, okay? Two, those dogs are expensive. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like you're going to spend thousands of dollars on a dog, and then you're just going to be like, here, you can eat this instead. Like just bring a mutt or something. Like that made no sense to me. I don't know.
Like, so you would have rathered a litter of beagle puppies? Is that what you're saying?
Straight from the pound.
Yep.
Like, we were saying, like, we were just waiting, like, if that dog died in front of the mirror, John Wick would have burst through the mirror and just, like, killed Kaylee, like, instantly. Just been like, no, my wife left me this dog.
Man.
Spoilers for anybody that hasn't seen John Wick. You're about 10 years late on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, they threw in some like psychological theories and the brother, Tim, tries to explain away. We've kind of touched on that briefly. Tries to explain away the deaths. Kaylee has this really good version of the mirrors attacking people and, making them mess with their mind. Tim talks about the theory that Kaylee's just putting things together that fit. to make her feel more okay with what happened, because what happened, she just can't process that her dad would do that. He says that her dad was having an affair. Mom went crazy because she couldn't process the fact that dad was having an affair. Dad lost his mind, killed mom. He had to kill dad. So that's and at that point, like you mentioned, Nick, you start to have this divide. And I really like that divide because, like you said, I know we're backpedaling a little bit, but like you said, that now you start to have this like cognitive dissonance almost, and you're going back and forth throughout the whole movie, just waiting for the end to see like what actually happens.
I like it. I like his sarcasm during that whole thing because he's like, yeah, well, we fucking bought a couch that year and all this stuff happened. Yeah. Was the couch haunted? And I was just like,
that sounds like something that like we would have an argument about.
Yes. I was like, oh shit, this is Christmas all over
and then
again.
That's when it's mentioned, like, you know, this stuff runs in the family. So like Steph mentioned, you're starting to get that mental health component where this might be a familial thing. So then you also start to question Kaylee's, you know, mental state throughout this whole time. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. Or keep going.
No, you're good. So like this is the point. This is kind of the point where like we're starting to see both timelines merging and stuff. So you're seeing the adult, we'll just say like the adult brother and sister, and the young brother and sisters, like kind of going through and doing things, and you're seeing the deterioration of the fabric of this family because the son talks to, or no, the daughter mentions that she saw a woman in her dad's study, and the mother begins to question his fidelity and stuff like that. If he's being like, if there's infidelity and stuff going on, like someone sneaking in and all this stuff. And you get to watch basically, I believe this was your favorite character in the movie, Steph, the mother, literally just like spiraling in this like despair of her not knowing, but believing that her husband is having an affair with something, which in turn is actually the mirror projecting things and talking to him and all this kind of stuff. And I have a note here. There's a scene where they're sitting at the dinner table. The husband's nowhere to be seen. And I've just got bowl of toast for dinner because the kids are just eating something out of a bowl and there's just a plate of toast and the mom's just drinking wine. And they're explaining like, well, I haven't seen her anymore. And the brother's like, oh, I have. She was on the stairs. I was too scared to come out of the bedroom. Blah, blah. And she's just like losing it, like going through his papers and stuff like that. And like, you just watch this woman go through hell because the mirror is causing this turmoil.
And along with that, you start to see the perception morphing too with the dad. While in his study, he has a Band-Aid on his finger. And this is the first instance where you see what you want what's the phrase? You'll see what it wants you to see. So he thinks he's pulling a Band-Aid off. And you see that at first, and then it cuts back and he's ripping his fingernail off, not realizing what's actually happening.
Don't like nail trauma over here.
I don't like blood.
Well, as the story well, yeah, we know that. As the story progresses, you notice like with his hands, like finger by finger by finger, like each one of his fingers as the show and it progresses, you see them getting injured individually. So it starts with one, then it becomes three. And then if you pay close attention to his hands, then you end up seeing all of them being done. And then the mother's kind of similar to that. Like it starts with the dog and then it kind of progresses into her like mental health stuff with the cheating. And then she goes into her own self-inflictions, which, you know, when they go upstairs and she's locked up, let's just say, and she starts inflicting pain on herself and she goes crazy in her own self-afflicted way, I guess.
Yeah, because she keeps messing with her. I believe it's a cesarean scar from a cesarean, like a C-section. So it's one of those things. Like initially, it's been I think the boy is 10, so it's been like 10 years since she's, I guess, had a cesarean, and then she mentions like it's more raised than it used to be, and then at some point in the film, you see like it's kind of split. And with that, with like how it foreshadowed and stuff, I was okay with this because I thought this is what I was talking about last night that I couldn't remember. I thought we were going to see her gut herself with so much broken glass in this movie and shattered plates and pots. I thought we were going to see her like legit just gut it or rip it open or something like that. And it loses a point for me for not giving me the goods on that because it was setting that up and it didn't. But for some people, like it's worse to not see it because it plays in your head. I'm disgusting and I wanted to see it.
That was her turn was the one that I didn't, it felt a little disconnected, being chained to the wall, eating plates. Like that part, it doesn't really go into what she was seeing. And I wish it would have. Like, why is she doing that aside from like going crazy? You know what I mean? So that part was lost a little bit on me. Like she really went for it, but it doesn't give us any of her perception of it.
No, and also like it definitely like it makes the husband an absolute monster with all that, because you just see him like he's taking the dog chain, just hammers it into the wall and stuff, and literally has his wife chained by the neck in a bed and stuff like that. But for some reason, and it's one of those things, she's seeing what she sees. We're not seeing it. So it's one of the few times that we're just seeing this monster, as it were, the wife. But we don't know what she's seeing. We're watching her eat plates and stuff like that and ripping her teeth out and all this horrible stuff. We don't know, like, she may be thinking that she's eating food because another scene that I don't like. I mean, I like, but I don't like the apple scene
in the whole movie.
So yeah. Before we get into it, Steph, I see you shaking your head over there. Without giving away the goose, why are you shaking your head?
Well, no, the first thing I was going to say before this, though, is that the mom, the one thing I was curious about, and they never answer this in the movie, and I kind of want to do a deep dive a little bit more to look into it. The husband, when she goes in to check his office, the word Marisol is written all over his paperwork. And the name is, and that's not her name, and it's not the daughter's name. So I wonder what the connection is to the word or the name Marisol. So I don't know if that has to do with the woman that lives in the mirror, or whatever entity lives in the mirror, or if it has to do with something in his past or his desires, or maybe he likes the name, but like, or if it's something to do with the wife and she's only seeing that because there's some association with that name. But as for the foreshadowing with the light bulb scene into the apple scene, it was just too obvious.
I get
it was
that.
Just too obvious.
But it's so good. I understand that it is very obvious. Like she puts the light bulb right next to the apple. And then you think, oh, she's going to grab the light. At least I did. She's going to grab the light bulb. Which then it kind of switches. She grabs the apple. So then you're like, oh, okay, we're good. But then we're not. And then like that was the perfect amount of time and gore was pulling out that big piece of glass. Had they done any more, I would have been over it. But it was just enough for me to cringe and tense. And then it was over.
Yeah, second one, mouth trauma. I'm not on board with that. Nail trauma and mouth trauma are the two things. And I was not expecting that in this. There's only one other movie that comes to mind instantly about this, and it's a movie by Takashi Miike. He's a Japanese film director called Imprint, and it deals a lot with like bamboo going under nails. And under the teeth and the gums and stuff. And it gave me that, not that visceral, like horrid feel, but it was just like more mouth trauma, more nail trauma. I'm just like, oh my God. But it's another time though that the lack of score in that time really pays off, because it's quiet and you expect, like, you see her lift up this apple to bite, and instead of hearing the crunch sound, you hear the popping of a light bulb and the sprinkling of glass down on the ground, which I like. The foreshadowing was there, obviously, like it was heavy handed in the foreshadowing. I personally, though, like, you hear it and you're like, oh, and I didn't think they were going to show it. And then, yeah, you see, like, she like looks and she's bitten into this pretty large sized light bulb, and she pulls out a shard of glass that is 2-3 inches that had to have just been embedded in her palate. And she pulls it out. And then you find out it didn't happen because the house is fucking with her again. Or not the house, the mirror is fucking with her again and stuff. So that's just Mike Flanagan being an asshole, going like, you know what else Nick doesn't like? Chewing on glass. Like, fuck you, Mike Flanagan.
And
go back to Netflix.
The scoring, yeah, like in that you hear her like gulping, and you hear the blood and glass mixture in her mouth. And I'll take, like, that is more spine tingling than any score ever is those real life sounds, body sounds.
Yeah, I would say that is the grossest part of the movie. If you can handle like what we just said and stuff, it's not like exploitative or anything. Like, it's not like, you know, a 5-minute scene of like her like, ah, or anything like that. But I mean, it's well shot. It's pretty gross if, you know, you're not into blood and gore. Like, it has a couple scenes that there's blood and there is gore, but not people getting gutted. Unlucky Nick. So,
and that leads to Karen Gillan, I believe, knocking over a pot,
which is foreshadowed again.
Yeah, this is definitely foreshadow the movie and gaslight the movie.
Yeah,
everybody's just gaslighting the fuck out of each other. It's I laughed a lot at it, like, not in a like this is cheesy way, but I was laughing because I was just like, these motherfuckers are just getting lied to left and right, and they're lying to each other because nobody believes anything anyone's seeing. They're all believing what they're seeing, and very few times do you actually get like two people are seeing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah. So while it is foreshadowing, did you think the person that got killed was the person that was going to be killed? No.
At the end of the movie?
So yeah, there are shards of, you know, broken bits of knives on the floor, essentially. Did you see that? Like, did you have an idea? I guess.
I personally didn't expect it. I kind of had a problem with it upon viewing it, but after watching it and we talked about it a little bit and stuff, it made a little more sense because of how the phone calls work and stuff like that in the film. So you're led to believe that she's getting these phone calls from her fiance, but that could have easily been not easily been. It is the mirror giving her these phone calls. So then the fiance is not getting a hold of her, so he's showing up.
Exactly.
But that's foreshadowing again, because they literally hand you everything on a plate. That's what bothered me the most about this whole movie. In the beginning, she's talking about all the histories, and then she's showing us like she brought food in order so everybody doesn't get dehydrated. She has this thing hanging from as like her protection thing that she has to return on every 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, so it can smash into the mirror if you need to get rid of it. And then, so you're foreshadowing and foreshadowing and foreshadowing. And then the apple, and then the boyfriend that she spent too much time explaining that situation. So I already knew something's going to happen with that because you're telling me too much. And so like when they went upstairs at the beginning of the movie and there was that little piece against the wall, you already knew that they were going to show us something was attached to that at some point. And you assumed it was going to be dog related, but it was in a bedroom. So you already knew foreshadowing. So like this whole movie is basically handing you everything if you pay attention.
Apparently, I didn't pay attention.
That's well, it's one of those things where it's not a fault of foreshadowing. It's just too heavy-handed on the foreshadowing. It's I can see why people give this movie a 10 out of 10. I can also see how some people could give this movie a 1 out of 10. I'm definitely in the middle there. I'm higher up a little bit than a 1, but yeah, and you'll find out later. The foreshadowing, if you're not paying attention, it's just like, oh, I didn't see that coming. But like, as Steph said, almost every single thing that happens, it doesn't just show you once. It'll like show like the boat anchor hanging. It doesn't just show you that once and then move on. It shows it multiple times. And that's the climax of the film. That the apple and light bulb scene, it keeps cutting back and forth. And you're like, oh, this is going to happen. There were some times that it faked me out, like the dog and like the stomach incision, the cesarean incision. So it's not 100%. There were some swerves there to keep you on your toes and stuff. But it definitely is heavy-handed on the foreshadowing for sure. But not as heavy as other movies. Like my problem with like the Conjuring films and stuff like that, most of James Wan's films, is because he in my eyes doesn't respect his audience enough to put together stuff. He's just like, this is happening. Aren't I amazing that I made this happen? And I just really have a problem with that. This movie doesn't get that far, but it definitely is just like, hey guys, this is happening.
But you also don't quite, or at least I didn't, you don't quite know how it's going to happen. Like the phone call to his doctor. Yeah. Like he thinks he's outside and then flash, he's still in the house. So yeah.
I liked that.
Just, for me, while things are, I guess, handed, it's that fact of like the people in the movie aren't in control of anything that's happening. So while the action, the bits that are coming, we see them, but they don't. So it's correct. It's scary for them, I guess is what I'm trying to say, where it's just fucking with them left and right.
Yeah. That's what I found the most interesting of the film is you're just watching these people, for lack of a better term, lose their fucking minds because of this possessed mirror. It doesn't really go too far into that, like the ghostly beings that you see and stuff. Are those all just its victims? Is there one that is the mirror? It doesn't really go into that.
Just the mirror. I would have been okay with not seeing anything come out of it or not see like the office full of deceased. I like the idea of it being this ominous, ornate, beautiful thing hanging on the wall that's inflicting psychological damage on people. Had it stayed there, I would have been fine. That part kind of took it out of me.
Yeah, I didn't care for that because I felt like it felt very Grudge-like. Like you're getting, or not Grudge, The Ring, very Ring-like, or maybe it's both movies. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen them, but like she just has like the normal, like the entity has dark hair and she's waif thin and she's pale. I mean, that's like your standard trope. And I felt like I would rather have been like a demon or something if you're going to show us, or even claws, like clawing at the mirror or something that was different, that wasn't like your standard like humanoid looking entity. I felt like that kind of took away from it, especially since it doesn't explain anything in the movie. But I do, my favorite part of the movie, besides the histories, I did really like the mom. She's my favorite character of the entire movie. And her part where she kind of loses grasp with reality. And then you kind of see the kids doing their thing in the living room and she comes down and like this whole thing plays out. She kind of regains her humanity for like a blink as she's like strangling her child. And there's something about that just is very touching. And I thought the lady who plays the character, I forget what her actress name is, but she plays Bo-Katan in the Mandalorian series. So I absolutely love her. And I thought her character was the best because you have that like motherly touch and like she was really tortured in a weird way. I don't know. And and Nick's right. We don't get to see her perspective. We get to see everybody else's perspective, but we don't know what she goes through, which is interesting.
Why?
Yeah, her actress name is Katie Sackhoff, is I believe her name. But yeah, like she did really well in it. But going back to like what you see, like all the ghostly beings and stuff, this came out in 2013. So I'm trying to keep it in my mind of the time that it came out. So films like The Babadook and stuff like that had not come out. I believe Insidious had by this time. I believe it came out before this, which it has kind of like this like red and black demon kind of character. But like before you see it, the implication of what it is way cooler, I guess, because it's just this shadowy thing. And that's what I wanted for it. I would have just been head over heels if it was one of those things where kind of Peter Pan-esque, I believe it's Peter Pan, where the shadow is sentient.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of play on it, where it plays more maybe with the reflection of the person, which you see that sometimes where they're looking in the mirror, the reflection is doing different things. There's a movie with Kiefer Sutherland directed by Alexander Aja called Mirrors that really plays into that, where your reflection is the thing that does the thing to you. So like there's a scene in that movie where the reflection starts pulling the jaw apart and the real person isn't even doing it, but their jaw's getting ripped. That kind of stuff I would have been way more on board with than just being like, hey, look, it's spooky ghost-like person. And look, there's a lot of them. The one thing I did like, though, that definitely separates it from the other in that category. At first, I could just see like the reflecting eyes. I was like, are you fucking serious? They just got glowing eyes, until you find out that they're mirrored.
Yeah.
The eyes are mirrors of all the ghostly apparitions and stuff. I did like that touch. I would have liked it more, though, if they weren't ghostly apparitions and they would have been more demonic, more muted, more in the like legit shadowy, instead of it like just being this like, oh, I'm spooky. I'm a ghost.
What did you guys think of the kind of parallel timelines in, I'd say, Act 3, where you're seeing a lot of, I wouldn't even consider them flashbacks, but like the hallucinations that the adult kids are seeing of scenes from their childhood?
Go for it, honey.
Okay. I liked it to an extent. It definitely made me question some stuff. There's this very specific scene that the brother runs into his old bedroom and sees his younger self, and his younger self looks over at the door. It leaves a lot to question in the sense of, since the mirror is there on both timelines, is the younger brother actually seeing him? Is he seeing a version of himself older? He doesn't obviously know what he's seeing, but is it like condensing time weirdly or something like that? Because he clearly sees the younger version of himself, but the way that the younger version of himself looks at the doorway in that scene leads me, and I've been wrong one time in my life before, just once. I could be wrong twice. I'm not going to bet on that, though.
Let Steph be the judge.
But like it led me to
Yeah.
it led me to believe that, like, is he seeing, like, is like time folding in on itself here? Like, I was expecting it to go full Lovecraft and just be like this dimensional hell. Again, and that's my preference. And it didn't do that. I'm not going to hold that against it, but that's where I was expecting it to go. I was hoping it wasn't. Like, that was my problem with the foreshadowing, and Steph can attest to this. I kept going, like, she would say, well, this is obviously going to happen. I was like, well, maybe not. Maybe they're not going to kill someone with the boat anchor that we're seeing 500 times in the first 30 minutes of this movie. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're setting us up for that. They totally do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing you have to think about, and I just considered this, now I'm thinking aloud here, with when he's seeing himself and they kind of see their younger selves in the storyline because it's running parallel together. With the male, what's his name, Tim specifically, is he unlocking those parts of his brain? Therefore, he's reliving those pieces himself. So it's not necessarily the mirror. It's actually him unlocking the parts of his brain that in psychology, they kind of packed away. And now he's kind of unraveling again in order to like relive it. But maybe he's seeing it from an external point of view because he's more mature now or something like that. Like, I don't know if that's like a breakthrough or if it's like the mirror itself creating this for him. Because what's the necessity of her doing that realistically? Like, what's the objective? Like, why do you need to show himself sitting in a bedroom? Like, there's no logical reasoning behind that to me. So I don't know.
Yeah, because like the movie definitely plays with like the whole unreliable narrator. The film itself is an unreliable narrator. So yeah, like you were saying, like is his perception of stuff not the mirror's like projection? Is it him unlocking his repressed memories? Because that makes sense. I never thought of it that way. Because yeah, for sure, like I mean, like definitely reliving trauma and stuff like that probably isn't the greatest thing. Tasha and I's parents did not murder themselves because of him and each other because of mirror. I don't remember killing my father. I may have repressed that. Dad, if you're listening, if you're there, last I knew you were alive. I don't know what happened to me 11 years ago. So, but yeah, no, like that's definitely something that I did like about the movie was the I'm a sucker for unreliable narrator. It works for me, but like I'm not going to harp on the heavy-handed foreshadowing.
And I saw it as the two of them kind of reliving their own memories, since a lot of times like they weren't seeing the same things. Like when Tim goes into the bathroom and Kaylee's like, "Is he gone?" Like she's going through her own thing while he's going through his own thing while they're going through the collective.
Yeah, because there's times where she'll look at him and he's an adult. She'll turn her head, look back. He's a boy. And the scene hasn't changed. And vice versa. He'll look at her. And then like in that scene that you're talking about where they're in the bathroom, she's acting out the scene of her being a child, but it's Karen Gillan as an adult doing it, because then they do the whole like we're gonna run out the door and all this stuff. So it keeps playing with that. So like I'm actually excited to watch it again sometime, just because I know how it goes and what to expect. So I'll be able to be like more clinical, I guess, on just like, oh wait, no, because of this, I think this is actually what's happening, and be able to break it down like that, which I do give the movie like 2 thumbs up on. The movie ended and I went, I'm not crazy about how it ended, but I liked I would say I liked the second act totally. So like if we go from like, okay, expositional dump in front of the cameras, plants die, from the plants dying on, I liked it up until the climax, where if you want to say what happens.
The climax as in the very end. What would you consider the climax? Because I consider the climax the scene where everything starts to fold in on itself, where they're seeing all sides, where they're going through it and then they're going through their individual. So
okay. So you're seeing the climax of the film as the scene with the father and the son, like where he's strangling her and all that.
Oh, go ahead.
Which does have I had to research it because I thought it was pulled from Shakespeare or something like that. But it definitely has one of my favorite lines in a movie I've seen in a long, long time. And it upsets me that I didn't see this movie 10 years ago, because I love the line when the son kills the father. It's basically like suicide by cop in a way. Son's pointing the gun at the dad, and the dad says, I've met my demons. They are many. I've seen the devil, and he is me. And he pulls the son's finger down on the trigger and kills himself with it. I loved that. You didn't, Steph?
I wasn't a fan of the phrase.
Oh. What?
Yeah.
Oh, I fucking loved it. I loved it so much.
It seemed very like screen, like script. That's all.
I like the quote if it was in a different perspective. Like, what guy is on his knees, whether it's the mirror talking or the dad talking, speaking to a child and like projecting these words. Like, to me, it just felt very cheesy in that sense. And I kind of said this last night when we were talking about it, where like if he had been standing in the mirror looking at himself, the father, and was holding a gun to his head and says those words to himself and then kills himself, that would have made a lot more sense to me. But you're involving a 10-year-old in the situation. Like, I felt like that was a little heavy-handed and a little weird. It would have been more
ominous if he just pulled the trigger without saying anything. Like, eye contact.
Correct.
Done.
Yep.
See, I liked the line. I liked the fact that he was the reason his son shot him. And the reason is if it's all manipulation by the mirror knows that what's worse than your dad shooting himself? Well, he shoots himself with the gun that you're holding, that you were standing on, and that's it. But what's even worse? No one here is going to believe you that that's what happened. And even though you're going to leave this house, you're going away. Like, the mirror basically, because they say like it protects itself, the mirror pins it on him essentially, which, I mean, like, it's a little more nuanced than that. Like, it's not like, haha, gotcha, or anything like that. But like, all that kind of stuff made me like how that played out. And then the line for me is just, I'm a stickler for like well written, like I said, like I had to see if it was like Shakespeare or if it was like Dante or something, like something old, because that's how it sounds. It just like has this like legion, like we are many, we are legion kind of feel to it. And I liked that as like almost being maybe the mirror, not the father, the mirror just speaking to the son through the dad as a vessel, and just being like, I've met my demons, they are many. Maybe referring to that the mirror itself is full, not just one, but full of demons, like a portal to this other dimension kind of thing. And then I have seen the devil, he is me, referring again to the mirror, and then it's acting out through the father killing him. So it's not the father speaking even consciously. That's how I interpret it. That's why I like it the way I like it, because I saw it as like the only time you see the mirror speak out, and it's this fucking like noise line.
Is it from something? Is it from another movie? No. Okay.
No.
I like your take on that.
No, it is specific to this film.
That. I hadn't seen it that way. I just saw it as kind of like a unnecessary drag on this scary dramatic scene. But I like that.
But the thing I guess I get that's confusing with this whole movie, because I'm more of like a cut and dry person in that sense, is like, what is the motivation behind this mirror? Does it just want suffering? Like, it's just, hey, we want you to suffer and I feed off of suffering. Because if it fed off death, it would just consistently kill. So obviously it feeds off of something. I don't know if it's stress, maybe like creating more and more.
I think it feeds more off of pain than death, and not just physical pain. I think it feeds off of emotional pain. It feeds off of torment, and those are the things that leads me to believe it's demonic. It's not ghostly, and that's my problem with them having just ghostly apparitions. Like, it makes more sense if they're not ghostly, if they're just people that it's projecting. Okay, but like with the ghostly stuff, it's like, it then makes me go like, is it capturing people's souls that it kills, or what's going on here? But like how it feeds and stuff, I think it feeds on like despair and chaos and pain and that kind of stuff, which then definitely leads me to believe like it's infernal. It is like hell, like it's this demonic kind of thing, which I like.
And going back to the people, like those people were victims. Why are they now coming out of this mirror as the bad guys almost? Yeah.
Yeah. that's where it definitely is like, hey, this is like, you know, a Hollywood film, even though it's lower budget, like $5 million. It's definitely a Hollywood film that you can tell that, like, you know, he didn't want to make it as a hand cam kind of movie, like a Blair Witch thing. But you can tell, like, with that kind of stuff, it's almost like the producers being like, hey, you know, what would make this ending probably shine a little bit? It got some reactions when this movie came out and that movie came out. So let's throw some ghosties in here at the end. Well, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. The kids love it.
The kids
get out there, Mikey. Get out there, Mikey. And and it did. It made money. It made a lot of money for a $5 million budget. I think it ended up raking in like somewhere around $40 million. So it is a successful movie. I don't really hear a lot of people talk about it though. And for that reason, I just kind of thought, I was like, oh, it's just garbage. You know, like, it came out, it did its thing, and boom. That being said, I'm not talking to every Tom, Dick, and Jane, like, what's your favorite horror movie? What's your favorite horror movie for Mike Flanagan? Is it from 2013?
You're lying. You do that with everybody.
I think I got a
Come
text
on now.
about that a couple weeks ago. So,
well, 9 times out of 10, when I bring it up in conversation, I just kind of go, what's your favorite movie? And why is it The Thing from 1982 with Kurt Russell? Like,
that's great.
Got our Japanese
and if it's not, you're calling them scum because they don't love that movie. You're like, you have no taste. You're terrible if you don't love The Thing.
You fucking peasant. You don't enjoy the finer things in life.
Why not? That's me. Don't like it.
Don't like the We'll get there eventually. We'll get there eventually.
For another time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So that's where my the arc starts for me is what we just talked about. And then it kind of like snowballs into not quite sure what's happening in the movie. I will say then it turns into then the ending. You guys say it's very foreshadowy. I guess it's just me being hopeful. I was really hoping that's not what was going to happen. But
well, because they show a couple times like people just standing in front of the mirror. It was literally like, and it happened, and both Steph and I, like, there wasn't like but that's kind of how it felt. It's like, that's kind of what it was. The only shock, and I'll use that lightly, was like which one it was going to be. You know, I would have hoped for it to be different, but yeah, Karen Gillan gets a boat anchor through the back of her neck, out her throat, and pins her to the mirror. Again,
we have the sounds of her trying to breathe. It's disgusting.
Yep.
And we've come full circle at this point. Now the cop, because he had called the cops, he had called for help. Mm-hmm. Help is now coming. Help now sees Karen Gillan's character pinned to a wall. Brother Tim is frantic outside. We've come full circle. He is now going back into a cop car. I really liked how that ended because to me, it was showing that no matter what, this was their fate. The mirror ended what it started 11 years ago.
I would have liked it more if, so we get the scene where Karen or Kaylee, is that her name? Kaylee kills her boyfriend. I think that would have been a better scene later in the film if that would have been the brother killing the sister, something in that regard. That way, where it's not so heavy-handed in the foreshadowing where you're like, someone's getting killed with that fucking boat anchor. I think that would have been better. And the cops show up and he's covered in her blood and all that stuff. And it's on video that he stabs her in the neck and all that kind of stuff. That would have been a better oh shit moment in my book. It already shows that it can do that. We didn't get enough background on the boyfriend. At one time, I thought the boyfriend was two different characters because he looks different with glasses on. So him in bed with her and him being her boss that owns the auction house thing and whatnot. I thought those were two different characters. And it wasn't until he died, I was like, oh shit, that's the same guy. Okay, he's dead now. There was no emotional connection to him. So I felt like they could have done without that, personally.
But no, they couldn't have. And I just thought about this because if you think about it, she needs to have access. She has to have access in order to get to all the antiques. So she probably didn't have an emotional reaction to killing him or really caring much about him at all and didn't explain anything to him because she's using him for her own benefit and not necessarily because she cared about him. It doesn't show that, but she's very cutthroat in this movie. She's very, this is what I'm doing. This is my outcome. This is what I want to accomplish. She only cares about her brother. Like she wants to make sure he's okay, but she ultimately wants to seek revenge. So I think she's using the fiance to get to her end, and she doesn't care about him personally.
That I agree with that. My thing is, it's not so much about that he didn't need to exist in the movie. It's the kill, bringing him in to kill him in that scene. Doesn't like I was saying, like I think that scene would have been better used killing her from the brother if we're doing that, where we're sending the brother back and everything. I think that you take that scene away. So she's calling and everything, and we don't know if that's actually happening or not, and we don't answer that. Later on in the film, maybe he thinks that it's the dad coming and like doing something there in front of the mirror where we know there's a bunch of cameras, and he kills what he thinks is his dad again, and it turns out that it's Kaylee's character. And then you still play it out where they see that on the film he's killing, it shows that he turns the thing and kills her, all this stuff. It would have had the same payoff. I just think it would have been a more effective, like, oh shit, because that was the reaction that I had when she killed her boyfriend, but I didn't give a shit that it was her boyfriend.
Yeah, I think that was...
Yeah.
And she obviously didn't either, because she's like, no. Then she looks at her camera again and stuff, and she's sad for a minute, and then she just goes on. I was expecting like a gut-wrenching, like, nah, kind of thing, and that didn't really happen.
Yeah, I liked that scene purely because, like you mentioned, he's not brought up a whole lot. He's kind of a forgettable character. So for that, I think it could have been a throwaway, but it also showed like the gravity of what the mirror can do. I think that was just that next step. So she did the apple, that was painful, True. And then it led to murder. And then you're not quite sure who it's going to be. Oh, it's the mom. And then it flashes and it's her boyfriend. And then she's like trying to be okay with it by looking at her phone and going, no, this is fake. This is fake. This can't be real. But then, yeah.
Which doesn't make sense, because we know that you can't trust what you're seeing and everything. But for some reason, she thinks looking through her phone is like able to trick it, but she also already knows that you need to get outside of its grasp and influence, because the fact that you're looking at a camera doesn't change the fact that it's messing with your mind. Like, she's very aware of that.
We didn't talk about this, but the scene where they don't realize they're messing with the cameras and turning everything. So it's hearkening back to that, where the cameras are true, supposedly, at least in that scene. So I believe she's thinking back on that, has the camera to go, oh shit, no, this didn't happen. The camera said so. But then also it's just another loop of how deep is this going? How many layers of perception are there that are getting messed with? Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, and then Brother Tim goes away. Roll credits. I've got and the mirror wins at the end. The mirror wins the Intercontinental title, handed to him from Vince McMahon in the WWE. He won it, beating Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H in a steel cage match, I think. But with that being said, we know that, Tasha, this is your pick. So why don't you give us, out of a ranking scale of 10 mirrored eyes or 10 light bulb apples, how many light bulb apples out of 10 do you give this film, and why?
I give it a solid 8.5 eaten light bulb apples. I loved all the twists and turns. While you're saying that, yes, there are some things handed to you, I love the attributes of like the altered perception component. It does fail a little bit with kind of the people coming out of the mirrors, like we talked about. But overall, the quality of it being using perception as a weapon, I think is really, really cool. So solid 8.5.
All right. So we got an 8.5. All right. Steph, what was your thoughts of Oculus on a scale of 10 light bulb apples out of 10? What do you give Oculus?
This is a hard one for me. I ruminated on it for like all night, just trying to think if I wanted to rate this what I originally was going to give it last night. Because I'm just going to say, like, this movie was not my favorite by any means. I felt like it lacked a lot. I felt like it was very stereotypical. And it was too foreshadowy for my taste. But I do think with the budget that it had and everything else, it was made really well. Like, it wasn't overly cheesy other than that quote and like other pieces of that. But sorry, honey. But I would say 5.5, probably.
5.5?
Yeah.
That's fair. So that comes to me. Oculus out of 10 light bulb apples. I'm kind of bouncing between two numbers, but the reason I'm giving it the higher of the two is specifically I like this movie because of the conversation. It definitely like is a movie that after you watch it, Steph and I watched two different movies in a way. And Tasha, you've obviously seen this movie a few times and you have watched it and you saw a different movie. So for that reason, also being that its budget that it did really, really cool stuff, especially when you're having to film basically around a mirror the whole time and they didn't have the budget for the CG so much to just cancel it out. So they had to actually figure out how to shoot it. And for it having a super dope ass line that I will not let you women besmirch. And I will say it again. I've met my demons. They are many. I've seen the devil. He is me. And because of that, it is getting a 7.5 out of 10 from me. I will watch this again. Like I said, we watched it with our son Wesley, and he really liked it. It was funny though, because like it was probably like halfway through the movie, maybe even further on. He's like, "Wait, those are the same people. The kids and the adults are the same people." Aww. He didn't make the connection until way later, and he'll be 10 coming soon, like next week. He's like our ride or die horror kid. Like he'll watch all sorts of things. I woke up today to a text, well, one of 6 text messages that went nuts, where he was like, "I'm watching Evil Dead." Like, not can I, just I'm watching Evil Dead. It's
Happy
like,
Sunday.
Oh shit, all right. So I came out and I was like, "So you watched the old one?" He's like, "No, I watched the 2013 one." I was like, that movie goes hard. So, or no, he watched the new one, Evil Dead Rise. I'm sorry, which also goes hard. But yeah, I give it a 7.5 out of 10, which gives us our total of, bear with me in math. So we got that. Carry the 1. I believe that's a. Is that right? Is that a 21.5 out of 30? So our teacher friend over here, Tasha, what's a 21.5 out of 30? What's that percentile?
72% we got there. That's not bad.
That's not bad. I give that I think that's fair. It's a serviceable movie. It's going to have its lovers and its haters.
It won't hit the same the second time you watch
all movies. Nope. That's why I'm interested in, because like now that I know every beat and everything, we've talked about it, watching it with aged eyes on it or whatever, I think it might drop, it might go up, who knows? But upon first watching, 72% serviceable. Was that a low C? Yeah, so that's fair. C's get degrees. So, we're going to wrap this up. But before that, this is a movie club. So next week, Steph, what will we be talking about next week? What will we be watching this week to talk about next week?
Trick or Treat.
Trick or Treat?
Mm-hmm.
The 2011 maybe 2011 film, Trick or Treat. It's 2007. Apologies.
Wait,
2006. It's crazy. So we're not going to go into any of it about now, what we think or anything, but that is what we will be going over next week. So thank you for listening to Pot of the Dead. I am Nicholas.
I am Stephanie.
And come back and listen to us next week.
Bye.
Or else.
Bye.